Hey guys, West Coast Taco here and welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in and I'm excited for today's video. This one's been a long time in the making and it's been quite a journey to get everything resolved that I was kind of going through. So I know I've been talking about it on some of my other videos and kind of, giving some hints about torque converter shudder and transmission issues, and I'm just going to start from the beginning and just kind of give you guys the full scoop because I've seen a lot of stuff on the Tacoma forums. I've seen some stuff on YouTube of people trying to figure things out, and I was right there with you guys, and I'm hoping today's video will give you guys a lot of help, some insight, some understanding as to why things are the way they are and how to go about fixing them. And regardless of what you hear, no, it is not a normal characteristic of the truck in regards to how it should be operating. So for me, guys, this started about 10 weeks ago. I was driving down the road, same roads I drive all the time, and going about 35 to 40 miles an hour on a very, very slight incline, like nothing steep at all, and started feeling like I was driving over some rumble strips. Like the steering wheel was shaking, the gas pedal was shaking. And for you guys that have had similar issues and you're trying to figure out what it is, I'm going to put a clip up right now for you guys of me getting the torque converter shudder to hold for almost 4 seconds. Because when it first happened, I was like really confused. I was kind of like taken back and I didn't even know what it was. Like it happened so quick that I couldn't, locate where it was coming from or really describe it. It just felt like rumble strips were being driven over with my truck, and before I knew it, it was over. And as I started doing it more and more, I realized that when I took my gas off, when I took my foot off the gas pedal, that the shudder would stop. And usually when our truck starts to do something kind of funky, I think our natural tendency is to take our foot off the gas and usually start tapping the brake. Well, I'm assuming the very first time it happened, that's what I did. It was my natural reaction, and the shutter stopped. Well, about 5 minutes later, I get to another green light, kind of like at an incline I'm at now, and I take the truck, I give it the gas, I'm going up the hill, and then as soon as I get to about 30 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, it does it again for a brief second, and at that moment, I knew that something was wrong. It wasn't the road I had driven over, like 100 yards back. Something was off. And so here's the sound I was getting. Check it out. This early. There you go. Let's see if I can get you guys a good feeling of it. Let's see. There it is. If I give it gas, it's gone. All right, so I hope that was a really good example for you guys, and any of you guys that have had similar issues are able to really just look at that 5-second video and be like, yep, that's the exact same shudder I've been dealing with or I've had in the past or whatnot. So like a lot of you guys that are probably watching this video right now, as soon as I got home, started Googling, started looking at the Tacoma forums. And if you type in, Tacoma vibration, there's like a billion things that pop up. It's not like there's just one thing. Yes, I'd already done my East Coast Gear Supply clamshell bushing on my needle bearing, so I knew that couldn't be it. I actually ended up going and getting my tires rebalanced just to make sure that wasn't it, just to kind of cross that bridge and make sure I didn't overlook that minor detail or potential issue. That wasn't it. So as I started looking and diving deeper and deeper into the forums and online, I came across a page on Tacoma World that said torque converter shudder issue. And as I started looking more into it, I realized that there were a lot of Tacoma owners that ended up having this problem. And a lot of them were just like baffled as to why it started and what caused this issue. So I started reading up on it, And one of the stories I came across was about an individual that bought a brand new Tacoma. The truck drove perfectly fine, no shudder, no issues at all, for about 1,500 miles. And then all of a sudden, the shudder started. And same thing, between 35 and 40 miles an hour, you know, between like that third and fifth gear, gear within the transmission. And for the most part, guys, I haven't heard of anybody having this issue with the manual transmission. It's only with the automatic transmissions. So if you're like, wait, does this affect manuals too? I don't think so, because essentially the torque converter is essentially taking the place of the manual clutch, and that's the problem, and that's where the issue is occurring from. So carrying on with the story, so I'm like reading into this, and this guy, brand new truck, 1,500 miles, takes it in Toyota, and they're telling him that this is a normal characteristic of the truck, which he refuses to believe, because he's like, listen, I've had the truck for 1,500 miles. How in the world is this a normal characteristic? Like, how can you claim this is normal if it wasn't doing it from the day I bought it? So back and forth, you know, he says he asked Toyota to check his transmission fluid, and they checked it, and then said it was fine. And then shortly after, you know, long story short, he ended up just selling the truck and buying a new Tacoma. Well, guess what? That Tacoma started having the same issue about 500 miles into it as well. So, you know, as I kept reading the forum, essentially at the end of the day, he never figured out what the problem was, which is obviously discouraging for people like myself and people maybe like yourself that have been trying to figure out this issue and you're not able to find solutions. So I started diving deeper and deeper into the torque converter itself and the transmission and how it all works. And for those of you guys that aren't really sure, like, how the transmission operates on these Tacomas in regards to it being a sealed transmission, here's a quick little snippet of me explaining how the transmission is essentially serviced.
So here's the transmission pan, and you've got two ports on the bottom. You have the check fill plug. It says check. You have the drain plug. And then on the side, way up here, let me see if I can point it out to you with like this screwdriver. There's a fill plug right there. And that's how they pump the fluid back into the transmission. So it's really annoying to fill. You can't fill it like you can with like a normal car, or I should say an older normal car that had a dipstick that you could access through the hood. So how this works is, for you guys that aren't familiar with this process, is you pull the drain plug and then you pull the check fill plug. You drain the fluid out, you put the fill plug back in, you leave the drain check or the check fill plug out, you pump your clean fluid back in, you get the transmission operating to normal operating temperature, and you keep pumping fluid until fluid starts coming out of the check fill plug. And then what ends up happening is that once it comes to like a slow dribble, you put the check fill plug back in and you're good to go. What's interesting about all of this is that when I was talking to the mechanic that I use to service this truck, who, like, once again, you know, former master technician for Toyota, said that a lot of times when he was doing the work on these transmissions, when people come with complaints about torque converter shudder and transmission issues, is that when you pull that check fill plug, a little bit of fluid should come out of it still, even after it's been serviced. But there were a lot of times he would pull it and it would just be dry as a bone. And when he would drain the fluid from the pan, you know, there should be roughly like 3.3 to 3.7 quarts of fluid that come out of that pan. Sometimes you get like 2.5, so they'd be low. So all of those rumors people had heard and talked about in regards to having low transmission fluid from the day they bought their Tacoma is definitely a real thing. But yeah, guys, just wanted to give you a video underneath here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about in regards to the sealed transmission and how it operates.
Okay, so what happened next was very interesting as I began to study and learn more about this transmission and torque converter. Is a lot of people were saying that, after they did transmission fluid changes and flushes, that the symptoms started improving. And so I figured, well, okay, I had my tires rebalanced. Obviously, that didn't solve the issue. And when I troubleshoot, when I try to find an issue, I start with usually the cheapest thing to do in regards to fixing an issue before I just jump to the most expensive thing. For example, instead of just going and getting my torque converter replaced or my transmission replaced in general, I figured, okay, let's start with the tires and make sure I'm not overlooking something. But as obviously, like I said, the balancing didn't do anything. It was now time to look at the transmission and the torque converter. And so my first thought was, okay, maybe my transmission fluid is low. And like I just mentioned, as I gave you guys that video of, what happens with a lot of Tacoma transmissions with them coming slightly underfilled from the factory, I decided, I'm going to call Toyota, because I still have a warranty on my powertrain, and the torque converter and transmission are part of the powertrain. So I call up my local, one of my local dealerships here. Never using a warranty before, I figured, hey, I have an issue. They're going to look at my issue, and if they can figure out what is wrong with it, they're going to fix it, and it's not going to cost me a penny. I mean, that's what I would think a warranty is for, right? And that's how it would be used and how it would kind of work out. So I give them a shout. I'm talking to the lady that answers the phone and telling her, hey, I'm having this Shudder issue. It's kind of like a vibration, blah, blah, blah. I need to make an appointment. And, very friendly, very nice. Great, I understand. Thank you for calling us. I'm so sorry you're having this problem. Yes, we'd love to get you in. Are you available today? Are you available tomorrow? And I was like, hey, I'm not available today, but tomorrow works. So I make an appointment. So as I'm talking on the phone, she starts to mention these little things like, we just need to be patient as we, try to find the issue. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I don't mind being patient. I mean, I get it. I'm not expecting there to be a miracle happening, but my truck's under warranty. I'm having an issue I've never had before. And I'm assuming that, you guys are going to fix this because obviously, truck's under warranty. It's pretty simple. And as we continue to talk, I just decided to ask the question because I'm like, okay, she keeps on mentioning me being patient. It might take some time. They need to replicate the problem. If they can't replicate the problem, I need to be patient. And so about 2 seconds later, I've just finally decided to ask him, okay, you keep saying I need to be patient. Is there something that I need to be aware of? Are you guys charging me for this appointment? And that's when things started to get a little awkward. And then there's one thing I've realized quickly in life is that when something's not right and something that just doesn't seem like it makes sense, ethically, people start to have to justify why they're doing what they're doing. And what she started to tell me was, well, essentially, if you bring the truck in and we can't replicate the problem, we're going to charge you $185 to look at the truck. And I said, okay. And she's like, but if we can locate the problem and we can determine that there is something wrong with the truck and it is at fault to a part that is under warranty, then we won't charge you the $185 and we'll take care of the problem. Well, I had just seen way too many people on the Tacoma forum take their trucks into the dealership, and the dealerships tell them this is completely and totally normal and a completely normal characteristic of this transmission, and there's nothing wrong with the truck. Now, it's $185, so it's not the end of the world, but I would much rather take $185 and put it towards something that's going to fix the truck than just flip a coin hoping that the Toyota technician is able to replicate the same problem I was having and then jump through all the hoops for Toyota to say, yeah, it's this X, Y, and Z. We're going to fix it for you. We're not going to charge you anything. Sit back, kick back, no problems. How often does that happen? So I said, you know what? I'm just not going to schedule the appointment after all. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your help. Have a good day. So this takes me on to the next point of this chapter. So at this point, I'm like, okay, what do I do? So I end up calling my fantastic mechanic. And for you guys that did not watch my East Coast Gear Supply needle bearing video, it's the same mechanic. His name's Jason. He was a former master tech for Toyota. He was on the V6 team. He did like 20 plus years of work with this group. Just a phenomenal guy. Helped the engineers fix a lot of problems in the older Toyotas, and just super knowledgeable in Tacomas. And, you know, my whole point of taking this to the dealership to begin with, because I'm like, well, if it's the transmission, I want to get it like noted and certified and kind of, you know, annotated by Toyota. And I'm having problems. But if they're telling everybody that this is normal, I'm not going to be the next guy that just experiences the same exact experience and wastes $200 and then deal with the frustrations and the rising blood pressure of dealing with the sales manager or the service manager and just going through all the nonsense. So I hit Jason up and I'm like, Jason, this is the problem I'm having. And he says, you know what? I've seen this happen with a lot of Tacomas, especially the third gens. He's like, typically I do a few fluid changes and it typically will solve the issue. So I'm like, great. So I buy a bunch of Toyota ATF and take it down to Jason. Jason did a total of 4 fluid changes. So drain and fills, not the flush, the drain and fills. And for those of you that are like, why didn't you just do a flush? Well, the flush requires kind of like a dialysis machine for your transmission. And a lot of, you know, independent mechanics that are working from like a home garage or even a private garage may not have that. So the drain and fill is typically the best they can do. Now, keep in mind, my truck has 25,000 miles on it. I'm not like at 60,000 miles and it's time for like a transmission flush or transmission service. According to Toyota, this fluid should last you, you know, lifetime, which I think they consider now is like 5 years, which is just crazy to me that a lifetime is considered 5 years. Where I come from, lifetime is like 65 years, roughly, give or take. So I was a little perplexed. And when I got to meet up with Jason and kind of dive deeper into the specifics as to why, you know, this is happening, essentially, you know, he was honest. He's like, they just don't make things like the way they used to. And Toyota does claim that this fluid is good for 60,000 miles. However, based off of my experience, off of my personal opinion, you know, it's much better and much smarter to get your transmission serviced at 30,000 miles, because anything after that, it might be just a little too late. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, I have a former Toyota master technician really diving into the weeds with me on, you know, everything Toyota's saying, but it's not technically true. And guys, this video is not to like put down Toyota or to even talk bad about Toyota, but really, for me, it's just frustrating that they're stating something that somebody who has worked on these trucks and has spent a lot of time with engineers and just troubleshooted a lot of mechanical issues with these trucks is telling me that, you know, 30,000 miles is really the furthest you want to go with these transmissions when it comes to servicing them or before your first service. So, like I mentioned, he did a total of 4 drain and fills, and these transmissions hold roughly around 11 quarts of ATF. And if you're wondering what ATF is, it's automatic transmission fluid. So he did a total of 4 drain and fills, and on the 4th and final one, we took the pan, we actually dropped the whole pan out, and we changed out the gasket seal and the filter that's inside of the transmission. And then I will go ahead and put all of those parts in the description below if you guys need to order them as well for your 3rd gen Tacoma, because you're either in the process of doing this or thinking about doing this. And guys, with each drain and fill, he would have me drive the truck for like a week and a half, get that fluid working through there. And believe it or not, over that 4 drain and fill span, the Shudder was continuously getting better and better and better, up until the point where it was pretty much completely and totally gone. Now, what I will say, and I will be honest about, is it never went completely away. I mean, it got to a point where you could barely feel it, and it would have to be at a specific point with the incline, the speed you were going, the gear it was in. And what I started noticing is that these trucks, the way Toyota has geared these transmissions, is to get the best fuel economy. It's all about the emissions, right? That's the problem that Toyota's having, and it's not necessarily Toyota's fault. It's that they're being pushed and they're being forced to tune and to build and engineer these trucks in a way that are meeting certain regulations that go against maybe what they actually want to do, but they really have no other choice, which is why this 4th gen, they're going with that 4-cylinder turboed engine, and the V6 is going, you know, bye-bye. And it's frustrating for me as an owner, and I'm sure it's frustrating for you as an owner, or maybe you're just looking at this and you're trying to figure out like some of the weird things that Tacomas, you know, have going for them and what owners are dealing with. But the good thing about it, guys, is that there is a solution for the problem. You know, it's not like you have nothing that you can do about it. And so, as I noticed that the truck started to gear hunt a lot more, and like, when I mean a lot more, I mean like I started noticing it more because I had the truck longer. It wasn't like I started doing the transmission fluid flushes and the truck started gear hunting more. But I just started noticing a lot more flaws with the truck than I did prior to having the torque converter shudder. And so I started doing more research on tunes, because I've heard that tunes will fix the gear hunting, the constant, you know, throttle lag, just all the issues that, you know what I'm talking about if you have one of these trucks. Like, and maybe you don't, and if you have had 0 issues with your torque converter, 0 issues with your transmission, 0 issues with just everything that I've been talking about, then great. I am like stoked for you, because this has been a headache and just a pain in the butt to deal with. But thankfully, I'm getting close to the end, and I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So basically, long story short, I ended up going with the Overland torque tune, which I did a video on a few weeks ago. And if you guys hadn't had a chance to check that out, check it out. A lot of the videos I was seeing was like people showing the tuner busting out his laptop and showing like all the gibberish on the screen. I wanted to give you guys a video of me actually experiencing the tune itself and driving it on roads that you and myself probably drive on a daily basis, to give you some very real and practical insights to how this truck handles once you get the tune done. And I've been absolutely loving it. So going back to the story, so talking with Jason, he's like, you know what, honestly, he's like, the tune would probably be a decent idea. He's like, I've worked on these trucks for a long time, and they have a lot of issues. And he's like, the little shudder you're still feeling once in a while, he's like, I guarantee you, or shouldn't, you know, I wouldn't say he would use the word guarantee, but he's like, I'm pretty sure that if you got the truck tuned, it would take away that shudder that you're still experiencing. And so after, like I said, the 4th drain and fill, at that point we had replaced almost like 13 or 14 quarts of transmission fluid. So if there's any old in there, it's very minute, and all the stuff should be brand new, and it's been filled correctly. I decided to go ahead and get the truck tuned, as you saw, and let me tell you guys, the truck is driving buttery smooth. It's shifting better. The shudder is gone. And honestly, the frustrating part about it for me is that all of those issues that I was dealing with is something Toyota could have just handled from the factory. But once again, if they're being forced through emissions and regulations to have to tune the truck a certain way, then it is what it is. But thankfully, like I said, there are solutions for these problems, and we're not stranded without being able to get something done to get it working properly. So there it is, guys. So to kind of sum up this video as a whole, if you're having the torque converter shudder issue, and you know, if you saw that clip I played in the beginning showing what was going on, I did 4 drain and fills, and then on the last drain and fill, you know, dropped the pan, cleaned the magnets, changed the filter, put a new gasket on, and then pumped it, you know, full of more clean automatic transmission fluid, and then sealed it all off with the Overland torque tune. And guys, it made all the difference. And guys, I've even talked to some people that have the manual transmissions, which I believe Toyota recommends getting those serviced at the 30,000 mile mark. There was a gentleman I had a privilege of speaking to, actually based off of one of these videos I made, and I I think he said he had 10,000 miles on his transmission for his manual transmission Tacoma, and he did a drain and fill, and he said that that stuff was getting really dark. So if you guys are watching this just because you're into Tacomas and you like watching these videos but you have a manual transmission, I would definitely think about getting some drain and fills done soon, or a flush. And you know, guys, it's so hard because it's like, what decision do you make, right? Like, how do you go about doing this the right way? Because I've read forums of people that their truck was totally fine until they did a transmission fluid change and they had all these issues. And then I've seen videos and read forums of people that buy their trucks brand new and at 500 miles they're having problems with it. And you know, it's all over the map. But for those of you guys that have a 3rd gen and it's got lower mileage, you know, talking with Jason, I'm going to be getting my transmission done every 30,000 miles. No questions asked, no doubts about it in my mind. I think it's just a requirement at this point. And for those of you guys that have a Tacoma that has got a lot of miles and you haven't had any issues, you know, I'm going to leave that to your discretion, your mechanic's discretion. If you want to throw a question in the comment section, I would be more than happy to help walk you through anything that you might have questions about. I could even run the question by my mechanic, Jason, who, like I said, is a former master technician for Toyota, was on the V6 team, and just has an abundance amount of knowledge and experience with the Tacomas, and would love to get you some help, because trust me, that's what I'm here for, honestly. And I've dealt with the frustrations, and honestly, I just know what it's like to be able to be at a point where you like pretty much have no help, and you've done all the research and you still aren't finding the solution. And you know, been there, done that. And like I said, thankfully, with help from Jason and a lot of research, you know, the 4 drain and fills, the filter change, and the tune took care of my torque converter shudder, and I didn't have to dive into the weeds of Toyota. And you know, yes, I do think Toyota should be responsible and have to pay for this stuff, but I'm of the mindset that I'd rather just get it done and pay for it myself with a trusted mechanic. And the funny thing about Jason is like, he does this on his property, and I'm like standing right next to him like while he's doing it, and he's super fun to talk to. Just really enjoying the relationship I'm kind of building with him, and I have zero concern or worries about what is going on with my truck in the background. You know, what kind of mechanic or how much experience does the mechanic have that's doing the work of my transmission have. So for me, it's been a great experience, guys, and it's all about just finding that trusted source, whether it's yourself and you can do it at home in your own garage, or you have the experience and knowledge to do it, or if you have a very, you know, trusted mechanic that you take your vehicle to. And maybe you're one of the few and lucky individuals that has a great relationship with your dealership and you can trust them. But I've just seen too many, you know, posts and videos of people having these horror stories of, you know, getting their truck back and there's transmission fluid all over the bottom of their truck, and you know, it wasn't filled properly, and you know, just all this stuff that's just so substandard and shouldn't be. It shouldn't even be a thing, but it is, unfortunately. And so, you know, going through the way I've gone through things, you know, I'd recommend finding a very good, you know, person you can trust. And maybe, like I said, maybe it is a mechanic at a Toyota dealership. I don't know. But for me, I wasn't getting any good feelings, and I've gone down that rabbit hole before, and it was a mess and it wasn't fun. And you know, I'd rather just go through it and do this issue in the troubleshooting of it with someone I can trust and has experience with it. And like I said, 4 drain and fills, Overland torque tune, problem solved. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap up this video. If you guys have any questions at all, please throw them in the comments section. That's what I'm here for. Happy to help. I try to be very quick on my responses because I don't want to leave you guys hanging. But very excited, guys, for what's coming and what's ahead. I've got some good videos I've been working on in regards to getting a full review of this truck for you guys now that I've dealt with some very serious issues, some minor issues, and just my overall thoughts on what I think about the interior, the exterior, what Toyota could have done better, what they probably can't do better, and what they're probably going to end up losing on the 4th gen. So if you guys are on the fence still and you're watching these videos trying to decide if you're going to pull the trigger or not on a 3rd gen, you know, stay tuned. And guys, just excited to see where this channel keeps going. Thank you for your support. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification button if you haven't already. I think you're going to really enjoy all these videos that I keep pushing out to you guys. I try to make them very applicable to the daily driver, to those of us that are using this for work, that are using this for our families on the weekends, camping, whatever it is. You know, this is what this channel is geared towards. I don't do a lot of overlanding or off-roading, but I feel like there is a very small amount of people that do that compared to those of us that are actually just using this as a daily driver. So I hope some of my stuff I've been giving you guys has been insightful and helpful. And like I said, guys, I'm very excited to see where things go. So stay tuned for the next one, guys. Looking forward to it. Until then, talk to you soon. Take care. I'll be seeing you.